Hello, let's talk about configuring hardware in Windows 10. To configure hardware properly, that's one of the most important tasks that a systems person can do in setting up Windows 10. Windows 10 has included some tools to help users and administrators do this properly. In Windows 10, there are built-in functions called devices under settings. Devices offer an enhanced graphical output and gives better details about the functionality of the installed devices, cameras, microphones, things like that. You get better details on those. Hardware today follows pretty much a plug and play based standard, so most of the time you simply plug the device in and it should work. However, that's not always the case. So let's go and let's look at how we can do this. So again, first of all, understanding devices. So the PC or a computer, a laptop, doesn't really matter, has several components. As new things come online, as new services become available, as new hardware becomes available, we grow. I want a printer, so I go out and I purchase a printer. I want wireless, I add wireless to my devices. The issue is, as we find new needs for certain components, we find those components. So let's look at Device Manager. We've already looked at Device Manager a little in depth, but we need to go a little more in depth now. Normally, Device Manager is used for assigning I/O, input-output based ports, and IRQs, or interrupt requests. This is done automatically, where older versions of Windows you may have to manually do this. You can also list hardware, you can also determine device drivers, you can also manage and install device drivers, enable, disable. You can manipulate drivers, roll back drivers, update drivers, troubleshoot drivers, and so much more. The thing here is we have to be comfortable with setting up drivers. There are many reasons to view the devices that are installed on a machine. One is to verify status. One is to verify operation of a device. Very common, I run into wireless issues on my Surface. My driver for my wireless adapter on my Surface stops working. So at Device Manager, I stop it, and then I'm allowed to reload the driver, and it gets my wireless functioning again. What is interesting is every device will have properties. If you need to change the hardware configuration, properties, that's where they're at. Device Manager is the best way to manipulate these attributes or parameters. Once you've opened Device Manager and have access to the installed devices on your machine, you can view the properties. The property dialog box for most devices will include specific tabs for that hardware. Something that will be like general or detailed or advanced. It really just depends on the individual hardware. So let's jump into Windows and let's look at them. Alright, so let's go and let's test this out. I am plugging in a wireless adapter. A Realtek 802.11n wireless adapter. I am connecting it to my powered on virtual machine, Windows 10. It will ding a few times, letting us know that that's the hardware. I'm going to go to my networking and sharing center. I'm going to go to my Wi-Fi. And I will go to show available networks. And lo and behold, I have wireless now. So let's explore this a little bit. Device Manager. I have a 802.11n USB wireless in card. Manufactured by RA-Link. Here are some of the settings. The driver happens to be a Microsoft driver, but that's not the manufacturer. Microsoft has the drivers as well for most common hardware. That's not saying that's a bad driver. That just is one that is generic enough for Microsoft to use. This happens to be the driver that, or this happens to be the hardware device that I have. And I'll type driver Windows 10. This happens to be the wireless adapter that I had. And on their page, I will go to support, I will go to downloads. It's a Wi-Fi USB adapter. It is an AWS 036 NEH. It's a Windows machine. And it's about 40 megs. Last modified was January of 2021. I'm going to extract it and pull it to my desktop. Alright, so we have a few things that we can do. If we open it up, first of all, you're going to notice there are no files here. There are no driver files here. Because we could do update driver, and we could point it to our folder. But there is no driver. It's just a setup file. More and more software are giving you just a setup file for the drivers. Running the setup will install the drivers, as opposed to you just getting the driver files. Alright, I will accept the terms and services. So, this is why they wanted you to use their setup, because they want to give you some of their utilities. I only want the drivers. There's a huge push by a lot of hardware manufacturers to use their utility to monitor their hardware. If you want the tool, then you can use the one either built into Windows or the one that the manufacturer provides you. Driver provider now has been updated. It's no longer showing Microsoft, and we get more options. Alright, so what happens if we're using this and all of a sudden the device just keeps acting weird? It just starts just malfunctioning or not working at all. Well, we have the ability to roll back the driver. And this is if a driver fails, we can roll it back. So, previous version of the driver. So you don't actually have to do this, but I do want to roll it back, yes. And you'll notice it now rolled back to the Microsoft driver. You can also disable the device from this area. And you'll notice it has a little down arrow now. I can no longer use the wireless card because the wireless card is essentially turned off. So you can have hardware here that is plugged in but not running because you've disabled it. I will go ahead and re-enable it. I'm going to right click on update driver. I'll just search automatically. Let's see what happens. Microsoft is going to keep installing the version that it wanted, which is the Microsoft version. And all else fails, if you need to completely get rid of it, you can always uninstall it. Delete the driver software for this device. This was more commonplace early 2000s. Modern day machines, no longer necessary. So it's no longer here. The device is still plugged in, so how can I force the computer to recognize new hardware. If you right click on, you can right click most places, but right click at the computer name, you'll scan for hardware and it will detect all new hardware and almost immediately find the drivers. Even though we removed them, it doesn't matter. Microsoft loves to keep them around and put them back in place. Alright, so that is our device manager in a nutshell, looking at some of the driver settings, being able to install the driver, roll back the driver, delete the driver, and disabling the hardware. So if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.